Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing a review of a thriller from the UK, English language, released in the year 2012, directed by Kieran Hawkes, and this film is called Piggy. And the story to Piggy is as follows. Joe had always idolised his big brother, but when he witnesses his brutal and needless murder by a gang of thugs, Joe is shattered. Only with the support of Piggy, one of his brother's friends, does he finally cope with his grief. Piggy believes in justice, an eye for an eye. But as Joe is drawn deeper into Piggy's violent vigilante world, he begins to question Piggy's real motives. But there have been far too many killings for Joe just to walk away, and Piggy isn't the forgiving type. So Joe is the main character. He is a very reclusive sort of person. He's got social phobias, and he absolutely idolizes his older brother. His older brother is a really good guy. He's trying to get Joe out of the house, trying to make his life better by inviting him out to parties, out to the pub. And so things are starting to get a little bit better. The more Joe is around his older brother, the more Joe sees hope in the world. But all that changes one night when Joe's brother is brutally killed by a gang of thugs. Now, the thugs haven't been caught by the police. No justice has been served. So Joe has been left absolutely shattered. One night, Joe gets a knock on the door, and out comes Piggy. Now, Piggy is a friend of his older brother's, and he says, he's been absolutely shattered by what's happened, just as much as Joe has, and he is angered by the fact that the police haven't caught them. So what Piggy proposes is that Joe and Piggy go along and they dish out a little bit of justice of their own, an eye for an eye, so to speak. So pretty soon, Joe is exposed to the cruel vigilante world that Piggy lives, and by the time he realizes that what he's doing is wrong, it's already too late because Piggy isn't exactly the forgiving type, and Joe just can't walk away. So what happens to Joe and what's in store for Piggy, that's something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I am going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Piggy. This is a really, really interesting revenge film. Now, it's not perfect. It does have problems, but what I liked about Piggy the most is the sheer realism that the movie portrays. Now, a lot of these revenge films, such as I Spit in Your Grave, American Mary, basically what those films are entertainment. Basically, what happens is the standard sort of formula for these types of movies is that the good guy is, raped or beaten, or something terrible happens, and then we see that transformation from victim to avenger. And we see these awful people who commit these crimes at the start get what they deserve just from sheer nastiness. So that was the case with I Spit in Your Grave. She's raped and then she does horrible things, and you get a strong sense of satisfaction from that. So it's not necessarily realism, it's just entertainment. You know it's a movie, and you're feeling as though it's black and white. You feel the good guys are good, the bad guys have no redeemable qualities, and therefore they get what they deserve. You feel good about it. But you shouldn't really feel good about it because of the horrible things that are happening. So it's not really showing violence for what it is. But then you get to Piggy. Now, Piggy, these very likable characters down to the good acting, but something really bad happens, and then all of a sudden, the victim to avenger stage happens, and when these violence is brought back upon these thugs, you should be feeling satisfied, but the fantasy doesn't match the reality. And that's why I say it's so realistic, because a lot of the time in reality, our fantasy of getting revenge isn't matched by the reality. The reality is a lot different, and it is quite frightening. And that's what the movie portrayed so well. I thought that Joe, he wanted revenge so badly, but then he starts regretting it when the revenge is taking place. So it is that fantasy of violence, as the contrasting difference between it actually happening. And we say it a lot. We say, I'm going to get that guy for doing what he does. I'm going to kill this guy. But it's all fantasy. It's all venting your frustration out in a make-believe world. But when it comes to reality, it's a lot different. And a lot of these other films don't show that difference. But Piggy does it very, very well. I like the fact that it didn't glorify violence. It's not violence for entertainment purposes. It's violence for showing you how destructive and evil violence is, and how it's not going to solve your problems by just brutally torturing someone, because it's not addressing the problem. And when Joe is slowly transforming from that victim to avenger, you can see that he's completely torn up about it. He's not going to step away from this and be the same person again, because he has witnessed some horrible things, and you see that he is starting to crack because, as I said, that fantasy doesn't match that reality. And that's why I think this film is something a lot different from something so simplistic. I was thinking that it was just going to be another standard revenge film, but it was something so much more. Now, I love the acting. Joe, played by Martin Compston, he does a great job at portraying someone who is very likable, very timid, and then his older brother, Neil Maskell, who's got a cameo role. It's a very loving relationship you've got between these two. So straight away you get the connection. You feel that these are real people. And when the bad thing happens to the brother, you feel so much sorrow for this guy, and you want to see the revenge. You want to see these guys get what they deserve. But as I said, it's done in a way where the violence is really cruel. So you start feeling a little bit sorry for these thugs. And you start to think to yourself, well, violence doesn't get you anywhere. All it does is make the problem worse. And I wasn't expecting that, and I think it was really, really well done to show you that these revenge films don't always have to be of the same generic kind. Now, the acting from Paul Anderson as Piggy, I thought was the best part of the film. He does a phenomenal job at this villain who starts off as a good guy. He's doing these bad things against these bad people. He kind of feels like the hero, but he's not the hero. He is a lunatic who is manipulating Joe's vulnerable state. And when you see that transformation, it's not overnight, as is the case with a film called American Mary. My biggest problem with American Mary was the fact that she goes from an honest citizen to a maniac, well, not so much a maniac, but a cold-blooded killer, overnight. Whereas this movie, the transformation from victim to avenger for Joe is very slow, and it's very heartbreaking because you see that he doesn't necessarily want to be the avenger, but Piggy is manipulating him and bullying him into doing the things that are going to satisfy Piggy. So there's two relationships: the relationship between the brothers, and then the relationship between the Piggy and Joe. So one is loving, and the other one is very manipulative. So ultimately, Joe is the victim of the film, and you just feel a lot for him because he is just thrust into a world that he's way out of his depth. You want to see a good outcome for him, but you just keep thinking that, you know, with Piggy in the frame, nothing's going to go down well. So I love that relationship between the characters, and once again, it was something I wasn't expecting. So this all couldn't be possible without good acting performances, and the actors do a great job. Now, I love the violence for the sheer fact that it wasn't entertaining. As I said, it's not gratuitous, it's not graphic, it doesn't linger on, you know, the shocking scenes. It's very cruel and hard-hitting, but you don't see much of it. And it's not so much a case of seeing the graphic violence, it's a case of how the violence is impacting on the characters. And I thought that was a lot more powerful than actually seeing it. And once again, it's not glorifying the violence. It's showing violence as nastiness. It's showing violence as destructive. And that's the way that violence should be shown. It's not pleasant. It's nothing to say cool to. It's nothing to make you want to go and rewind it. It's nothing to make you want to go and see the film again straight away. Violence is nasty, and I think that a lot of films get lost in that. A lot of films depict violence as being cool, as being entertaining. And then you've got films like Piggy that are different because it shows violence as a very negative source. It shows violence as very destructive and very depressing. So overall, this is a very depressing film, and I thought it just strikes you with sheer realism. So it's not the most graphic film you'll see, but it's one of the most hardest to watch because of the fact it's so in your face. I like the pacing of the film was good, but I have a little bit of a problem with some of the elements in the movie. Now, it is a simplistic sort of film, but towards the end it starts to get a little bit complicated. Now, yes, that it creates thought-provoking material, but I thought it would have been better just being a very simplistic sort of revenge film because the characters are very good. The violence is done in a very different way. And that would have been enough. It didn't need the complications towards the end. And I just thought that, you know, it doesn't derail the film at all, but I just thought it would have been better just going a little bit more simplistic. And then my biggest problem with the movie was the love interest between Joe and the older brother's ex-girlfriend. I thought that was unnecessary. Why do you have to have a love interest? I just felt that it gave the viewer hope. And I don't feel a film like this needed to give hope. As I said, it shows you the destructive nature of violence. And having the love interest there, I thought, was distracting it from what it wanted to do. Deliver a very heartfelt, thought-provoking message, but that love interest kind of held it back a little bit. So I really didn't like that. I thought it didn't really go anywhere, but thankfully it doesn't derail it. So overall, what you get from Piggy is a very depressing, very downbeat, sort of very hard-hitting revenge film that was different from the majority of revenge films that you see out there. So if you're a fan of this subgenre, I would highly recommend you go out there and check out Piggy because it will definitely make you think. So overall for Piggy, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. 3.5 because it is simplistic, but it's simplicity done very, very well. Alright guys, this is my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.